And we're live. Welcome back to Inside the Labyrinth, Season 5, Episode 4. Last episode, we had James R. Fitzgerald, retired FBI agent, most famous known in the Unabomb case, so please check that out. Um, you guys know me, you know my spiel. It's Frank. Really excited for today's guest. Very, very similar mission. It's great to hear that, you know, all over the country that people are getting together, and it's going to come down to us to fight this battle that people are going through. So really really honored to have this podcast today. But before we introduce our guests, kick it over to the one and only, the real Jumpman Jay.
Hey, the real Jumpman Jay, as always. Reps for Responders, Inside the Labyrinth podcast. It's always a blessing to be on these interviews with my boy Frankie. And, we've come a long way since we started. And the guy that we're going to have on this show today is, consider him my boy. We haven't physically met in person, but, just from being around my cousins that work in the same area that he works in, they speak very highly of him. And, I made it a thing to build a relationship with this dude because, we have very similar mission statements as far as how we want to go about helping others and, just how we, do the job. So, we made it a thing to try to make this happen. Frankie like I said, Frankie closes all the big deals. Frankie's like the Jerry Maguire of the podcast game. You know what I mean? He's making things happen. So I'm gonna swing it back to Frankie so he introduced our guest, but I'm excited to have this man on today.
Appreciate that, Jay.
Anytime,
um,
bro.
so I'm going to introduce Dylan, Officer Dylan from One Less Org. Dylan, how you doing, man? And how you doing right now where your feet are?
Yo, I'm blessed to be here. That's definitely going through some stuff right now. We can get into that later, but extremely blessed to be here with both you guys. You guys are an inspiration, especially since my nonprofit is just getting kicked back up off the ground. Seeing what you guys are doing for all of our first responders is a true blessing, and I'm just really happy to have the opportunity to speak on here.
I really appreciate that, man. And like I said in the intro, I'm really happy to see what you're doing, what your organization as well. So let's hop in your labyrinth. Let's travel through and see what Dylan's got for us. So Dylan, take us back to a Dylan in high school. How was high school for you? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Sports, or how was Dylan then?
Yo, Dylan was in an identity crisis in high school. I was like, I don't know, a mix between a redneck and a wannabe Eminem. I couldn't really figure it out. My family is extremely diverse. My dad's immigrant from the Dominican Republic. My dad who raised me. And because you're probably looking at me like, yo, this man ain't Dominican. But my father, who I consider my father who raised me, yes, he's an immigrant from the Dominican, and my mom's from West Virginia. And then they both merged in Northern Virginia, and that's kind of where my upbringing was. But yeah, so high school, I loved it actually, more for the social aspect than the school aspect. I was definitely the class clown. Definitely didn't pay attention that much in school, to be quite honest. But I loved it for the social aspect because all my boys were there. And high school, I used to think it was a curse because I didn't have like one group of friends. I was kind of friends with one person in every big group. You had you kind of had like the jock guys in one group that all hung out together. You had the kids that live up in the nicer areas that hung out together. I kind of had a friend from each area.
Okay.
My identity crisis was trying to figure out why I didn't just fit into one group. I pulled people from different areas to become my best friends, and so who have stuck with me till now. So yeah, high school was definitely an interesting experience for me. Definitely testing my limits, and then definitely I would say that not a lot of leadership qualities in that because I was more of just trying to follow whatever path I thought was best for me, and some of those were not the best. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of tough when it's tough to find your place when you're trying to run with the crowd, and it's not. It's you're humble for saying that, man. Following and you know trying to find out really who you are. I think a lot of us have been there. So I'm guessing that being an officer in your high school mind of Dylan wasn't in your thoughts yet, or was it like, oh, you got to be kidding me if I asked 18-year-old Dylan that question?
So, to give some history, like my father also is retired PD. So he was a police officer while I was in high school. And to make things more awkward, my mom was the assistant principal of the high school I went to. So you can
Oh
imagine
wow.
that was like while I was out here acting a fool, um, you know, the teachers got to a point where they wouldn't even yell at me. They'd just go straight to my mom, and then I'd go to her office, and then I'd get screamed at, and I didn't even know I did anything wrong because I wasn't called out on it in class. Uh, yeah, it was an interesting experience. Like I remember one time my pop showed up to the school just to take my phone away from me, you know, and he was like, "Yo, bro, like your mom told me to do this," you know.
Was he in uniform?
Yeah, yeah. My mom ran the show. My mom's a very strong woman. Raised me for 6 years prior to meeting my father. So she ran the house, but she put him in a position to be the heavy hand. So like if she wanted something done, she'd send the muscle. And so I remember specifically he came in and so yeah, the high school, that also made the high school experience different because it was kind of funny. I guess like the rich kind of preppy kids didn't like me because they were out fooling around and they thought that because my dad was a cop, they're going to get caught up. Meanwhile, the kids from the rougher areas around here loved me because I was like the friend that had a cop dad friend. I don't know. Like I was like the friend that I don't want to say like the get out of jail free card, but like it was like a connect to law enforcement, So I actually ended up finding my way more with those guys than like the other guys, which kind of led me down my path, I guess, a little bit. And then to harp on that, funny you talk about wanting to be a police officer. I never really thought I ever wanted to be a police officer. I actually didn't know what I wanted to be quite honest with you. I think that's a whole part of that identity crisis, like not really knowing where I wanted to go. I didn't have a clear path, clear focus. And the only cop I really had that I really appreciated was my father, and then maybe his immediate friends. But other than that, I avoided law enforcement at all costs. So, yeah, I didn't really, at least in the high school stage of my life, I was not definitely not in the headspace to be anything near law enforcement.
Any sports
When did
teams? No sports teams or anything like that fellowship, or just going from friends to friends?
Yeah, so it was a friend to friend thing. I tried kind of every sport, going through, did football for a little bit, didn't follow through with it. Um, Wrestled, never made it to, sprained both arches of my feet before I made it to my first match. I was just kind of that, I don't know. I tried every sport and for me, it was more like the workout that I liked from it. But I think a lot of that has to do, and this is probably diving deeper, but I think I just didn't have a lot of faith in myself. And that really hindered my ability to really participate in any sport because I just thought I couldn't perform. And that I'm actually like kind of revealing that now through therapy, digging deep into my past. I'll get into that a little bit later, but really fine tuning some of the insecurities that I've had that I've allowed to hinder my life. So yeah, sports weren't really a thing for me. Plus my mom, like if I got in trouble, she'd try to use the sport against me. I'm going to take you out of the sport if you keep acting up. I'm going to do this. And I was like, you know what? I don't really care about the sport anyways. I'll quit myself.
Oh yeah,
So
it's just kind of beating her to the punch almost.
yeah, I was like trying to avoid the wrath. I was like, yeah,
I
you can't take away anything from me that I don't already take away from myself. So, you know, so yeah.
got you. So at what point did it kind of kick in for you to put it into gear to become a police officer? Was there like a gap after high school, or like because I know for me it was more I was trying to find who I was from like 18 to like 20. That's like a rough area for young men, I feel, because in high school you can kind of be a part of these different friend groups, and if you got into any kind of major trouble, it kind of gets thrown by the wayside because you're not a quote unquote adult yet. But that 18 to like 20 whatever, that's where like real trouble happens for most guys. So where did you figure out, hey, maybe I should buckle down and probably try to get a career in law enforcement?
So Post high school, I ended up going to college, went to West Virginia University, only made it 1 year.
Okay.
um, I didn't go to college because I wanted to go to college. I went to college just because it was a thing to do and, a way to get away from the house. And, I thought I'd make my parents proud. So I went. Unfortunately, the insecurities that I had through high school led into my college, and it got me really down a big, which is ironic to say because I'm a police officer, but it got me into drugs pretty heavy. The guys that I was hanging around through college were complete opposite of what of the people that I hang around now. But essentially, I had to cut that short. Two of the guys that I was very very close with, I'd consider brothers through that 1 year. Both got hooked on heroin, and so it was like that bad. And then I was hanging out with dealers, and I was kind of like my life goal, or kind of like the life goal I had for myself, was like, I'm just going to be a pothead that like lives in California in an RV, which I never been to California and I never really lived in an RV, but that's just how lost I was.
Mm-hmm.
So after that 1 year, I definitely realized, yo, that ain't me. Like I don't know what I want to do in my life, but this is not me. Like I gotta get. So I dipped. I didn't get kicked out of school, but I dipped out and came back home, which was interesting because my mom, she grew up in West Virginia. She was out of the house at 16. So for her 18-year-old son to come back, it was like, what is he doing here, right?
Yeah.
So I got really big into fitness at that point. I befriended a guy who was a manager at a gym, actually a long-term neighbor of mine, and he kind of pushed me into fitness hardcore. And I got a little brother and little sister. They're my all. Actually, I have four sisters and three brothers, but they're kind of scattered out. But basically, because of them, I quit doing all the drugs, smoking stuff. I didn't really get anything too heavy. I was a big smoker, but I entertained a few things. But basically, because of my little brother and sister, that made me put a halt on all that. Because now I was back home, I was responsible for picking them up from school. I was responsible for doing this. Last thing I want to do is be hired up, and then they need something, and I'm not available. So what I did do is I replaced drugs with alcohol. And my buddy and I, even though we worked out all the time and we prepped all our meals, it was like every other night we were drinking, right? We were just us two, just hanging out, drinking. That's kind of what we built our relationship out of. But basically, fast forward, I got a job with a government contractor. I wasn't making good money. I was a receptionist. Sounds sexier than what it was. And then I was going to school at a local community college, taking night classes. And at this point, I'm getting ready to turn 21. And I remember sitting at the dinner table, my mom, my dad sitting there. And, my mom essentially in a nutshell was like, look, you're about to be 21. You need to get out of my house. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, you got to, your job's not paying enough for you to live on your own. What are you going to do? I didn't really have a plan. And so the joke goes that my father goes, why don't you look into law enforcement? And I laughed at him, he laughed at me. And the next thing I knew, I was, with a badge and a gun. Now, to clarify that, there were about 3 years between the last time that I had touched any type of weed, anything like that, and all that, and had gotten into physical fitness before I applied to be a police officer. It's not like 1 month it went from one to the other. I had already cleaned my life up, at least to my standard at the time, so that I felt that I was ready to go into this career. But I didn't go into it like most people. I went into it just because I was like, I need a job that's going to be better. And then I also, because of once my purpose instilled in me once I got the job, because then I was like, all right, well, I've had all these negative connotations about law enforcement, besides like the love for my father, that I want to be one less asshole, right? That's not how One Less started, but I want to like I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it live. I'm gonna do it for the community. I'm gonna do it out of love. I'm gonna do it, you know. And then again, another identity crisis because you're going through the academy. Now you think you're like this, top cop, and now you got a gun and a badge and all this kind of stuff. So you're trying to figure out your way. So that kind of what led me into law enforcement. Not a traditional route by any means, but getting into this profession by far was kind of the discipline I needed to get my life turned around, and then my true purpose to be pushed out instead of being like on this lost path of, you know, kind of like meaningless path. So yeah, that's kind of the journey, a rocky one for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy you kind of rectified the ship. You know, it started to go off course, and you know, you had the self-actualization and be like, all right, well, this is not the person I want to be. I have younger siblings that look up to me, and I want to be a positive, you know, role model, or whatever word you want to use to your younger siblings. I think that's an admirable trait. It's not easy, man, especially like coming to that space as a young man. Um, it's not easy by any means, because like, just speaking from my point of view, we're all like conflicted at some point, because when you're at that age, you really don't know what you want to be, and you're trying to figure out, you know, your way. And we all have like insecurities from, you know, our upbringing and just the traumas that we've experienced as kids, you know, growing up. I always say this, you know, when when you're a kid, right, you're growing up, but your parents probably had you and they were growing up. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's a heavy concept to really swallow. So it's like, um, it's hard for us to figure out a way, because we don't really have like the best direction at that age. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you know, we're around friends, right? So they're trying to figure this shit out too. So it's like you got a bunch of young, misguided kids trying to figure out their way through life, and then that's how some people end up going down the wrong route. And you know, and those are the guys that are less fortunate. The fortunate ones, like you know, myself, you, and Frankie, is that we you know, we righted the ship at the right time. And you know, it's a journey that we're on, that's never ending. Like, I feel like we always got to make sure we're at the helm of the ship, making sure we don't veer back to that dark space. But you know, give yourself a little bit of credit, man. Like, you know, you were able to right the wrongs and figure things out, and you know, now you're at where you're at.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that.
Anytime, bro. Anytime, brother. I see Frankie's wheels turning over there.
Yeah, of course. No, definitely on Jay's part. Amen to that. Now, Dylan, when you got on, how old were you? Were you 21 or are you a little older?
21.
21. So you graduate the academy. You're like, okay, now was it part of you where I need to mature now, or that I need to, get, kind of like that dinner talk with your mom is kind of like, I could see it being like a revelation for you. Like, all right, light a fire on my ass. I got, like you say, I got this badge and this gun. Now I'm going to work. Did it kick in, or it took some time to really figure it out, as in, this is going to be my career, and to the point where you, when did it when did it become a purpose and a calling instead of just a job to you? How long did that take to kick in?
So I kind of dive into everything 100%. So as soon as I dedicated myself to becoming a police officer, like, my father had set such a really good reputation for himself. You know, he made his way high up. He's very well known in our department. I was like, you know what, I got some shoes to fill. I'm gonna do my best. So I didn't really know what my purpose was going to be or where my place was going to be in the police department, but I just knew I was going to give it 100% the day that I committed to actually doing it. The moment they gave me the opportunity, you know, to backtrack on that, like, I didn't originally get hired. The chief, actually, who's no longer the chief, actually overrode the decision not to hire me, which I still to this day believe it was an ace for my father. But like, my father would never admit that, because he wants me to take full credit for what I've accomplished. And uh, but with that, as soon as I was given that, I was like, I'm about to go all in, and I'm going to make my father proud. And I'm going to, you know, I don't know what I'm, I don't know where my purpose is set, or what my reasoning is. At this time, I didn't really have faith tied in strong. Like, I wasn't following, you know, I grew up kind of without religion. So I didn't really have like that path either. So I didn't really feel like, uh, I just didn't know. So, but I was just like, I'm gonna go all in. Whatever's asked of me, I'm gonna do, and and I'll kind of lead from there. So moving beyond that, um, moving beyond that, it took a while. So what I didn't realize is that although I was doing pretty well in my career, the demons in my closet had not been addressed. Right. So there are things like I kind of mentioned insecurities I had in high school, kind of other things like that, self-esteem, all those kind of things. What I did not realize is that because of the traumas you experience in this job, those were going to indirectly come back out and you were going to have to face them. Right. So that happened to me. Um, I had gotten myself in a groove with work where I was really good at work, but I didn't have my home life cleaned up, if that makes sense. So, in the eyes of my employer and my sergeants, I was squared away. I was getting things done, what I need to do. But when I came home, the laundry was not done, the bed was not made, the beers were opened, the video games were opened, and that became my decompressing mechanism, which I did not know at the time was extremely unhealthy. So, um, but yeah, I mean, when I first got into it, I went all in. I just wanted, honestly, at first, I just wanted to make my father proud. I wanted to make myself proud, because I just stepped into an admirable profession. Um, but it took a couple of years. Like I'm 7 years in. It took a couple of years before I really found out what my purpose was for being in law enforcement. So,
Well, I got to commend you on that, man. I mean, you've been very honest, and that's what this that's that's where this job is going to tie you up. It could be 7 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 17 years from now. If you're honest with yourself, and how long are you not going to be honest with yourself to let those demons keep doing push-ups in the closet, right? Let them keep getting a swell on and kind of control you. Um, you know, talk about drinking. I mean, I can attest to that 1,000%. So you're definitely not alone on that point. And I'm glad you brought up that, cracking that cold can and sitting down, and that's major coping mechanisms for a lot of guys and girls right now is video games, and drinking. And like you've had Dr. Gil Martin on your show, talk about the magic chair, right? You're not even you don't even know what the hell is going on. You're so focused in that game, and or maybe you're not. Maybe you're playing and you're not even like thinking about the game. You're thinking about something else, but you're like a robot. You're an autopilot. So now a personal question, I guess. Do you still drink today?
No, well, this is kind of new. I guess new year, new me, right? I was drinking a lot, and then I tapered it down a lot, like to where I really wasn't drinking that much at all. And then I actually have hypothyroidism, which is actually new to me in the past 2 years. So it really messes up my thyroid when I drink. So I kind of took a testament starting this month that I just wasn't going to drink, period. I believe that I'd already had the drinking under control prior to that, but now it's like it's not even a point for me to have a beer or two if I'm going to feel like shit for the next 3 days. So,
amen. So so you've been dry all of January?
Been dry all January, and I'll be honest, like I haven't craved it either. So,
Good for you, man.
That's a big one.
Yeah, man. Congrats on that, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Drinking's built into our culture as law enforcement, specifically, and first responders and military. It's kind of the way that like we used to call choir practice. I know they still do it.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't feel, you can, to harp on that a little bit, you can feel like you're not a part of the group if you're not out there getting blasted after a long 3 days of 12s. You get that last, you work at midnights. I mean, now I look back, I'm like, who gets blacked out at 5 a.m.? Like who does that, right? But shit, a couple of years ago, that was the bread and butter. That was us coming together to handle the trauma the best way we know how, because that's a part of our culture. But that's definitely not the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine back then, a few years ago, if someone was like, if I was in your department and I was like, hey, Dylan, do you want to come back to my house and talk about what everything just went on and put on Netflix or everything? Like, who's this fucking guy? Get this weirdo away from me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
it's so simple to get all 5-6 guys to go to a bar, drink, and what they're gonna drink, and what are we gonna talk about? We're gonna talk about the damn job over and
Yeah.
over and over and over again, and it's gonna be instilled in our brain. So when we leave and we're feeling good in quotes, we're gonna go home, fall asleep, wake up, probably not go to the gym, go back to the job. Same thing, the job, the job, the job, the job, the job. And then what, that's not the point of life. That's not the point of this job. And unfortunately, that's how it's installed in, like you said, in a lot of us. And it takes it's hard to change. Like you said, that's really, really awesome that you've been Drive January. We're actually doing a 1,000-hour dry challenge where it's up till February 11th, and we'll have like this little Red for Responders 1,000-hour dry coin. So hopefully you get to February 11th, and we'll send you one of those, and that's really cool stuff, man. I just hit 16 months, and it's definitely wasn't easy for me. They usually say the first 90 days is the toughest part mentally. The mental obsession gets um, elevated to a certain extent. Now they're saying it's like 120 to 150 days where you don't think about it as much, but every person's brain is different. But yeah, today's like day 3 for me. Jay's gonna laugh. Day 3 of no grizzly or skull, and
My
Oh
man.
wow, wow.
I have to remember that. Uh, so when I went to the farm, I picked up chewing, right, and I never smoked, I never chewed. So I replaced, the booze with the dipping, and it was like it's for like over a year and a half, probably close to 2 years in April. It's been like a 10 a day, and I would stop,
Oof.
say I'm gonna stop, um, get to day 5 and be like, oh, I'm getting a little, I'm getting like a little headache and stuff. I'll put it in, and then like it just came to a point where I was like, I get to the gas station, I get it, I put it in my car, I'm driving, like wow, right, autopilot, I just got it. Like it's not even like a thought. You just go and do it. Like I'm
Yeah.
not letting this control my life. I'm not going to let this control me anymore. $7 a day, right? For 7 days, it's $49. It's $50 a week, $200 a month. 200 times
Oof.
12 is $2,400 a year I could save. All right. Now you want to talk numbers? How you doing? So not only for my pocket, but for my brain, it's like I'm not going to let something like this take over. I've already made it this far with alcohol. I was like, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need this. Right. I'm gonna get through this. So once I get through that 2 week mark, I think it'll feel better. Like all right, but it's not easy. Change is not easy, and I know and Jay knows. It's very hard just to change one habit, and can't do it alone. Like I talk about it in the respondent talk groups. Like I got to stop this, and
Let me
back
ask you a
each other
question,
up.
Frankie. I only know like, you know, Frankie, like this version of Frankie. What type of oh, that's my dog. I'm sorry about that. Um I only know about hey, enough. I only know like, this version of Frankie. What type of guy were you when you were drinking? Because I like, I don't know that version of you. I only know this guy. And I mean, I love this version of Frankie, so I don't know what the other version was like.
I mean, to be honest, I would get happier. I was very loving and caring, more like to the extent where I just want to talk to everybody and love everybody. But then at the same point, it's like it wasn't, 2 or 3. If it was 2 or 3, it was like 13 to 20, and
Oh shit. Okay.
you would just there was no stopping it, man. It's like it was just keep going.
Hmm.
There was no stopping it. And then you say things to people you don't mean, you regret, you have the guilt and shame over and over again. Um, and it's crazy because a lot of the times I wouldn't do anything wrong, but I would feel so guilty and shameful, like I was committing a sin in my heart and my stomach was like a knot, and because I knew it was wrong, like I just knew it was wrong, but I loved to do it because it made me, like what Dylan said, I can have fake confidence. I could say whatever I want. Oh, Frankie's here, All right, let's line them up, boys. Shots on me. Like if you're drinking with me, like it wasn't just it was a fun time, but a disaster. So it's only a matter of it becomes a fun time. And then when I started coping with it, that's when that fun time became very dark. And now the taste in my mouth and in my brain is the last time I drank, um, almost caused me to lose my job, almost caused me to lose Christina, my girlfriend, who came back into my life, almost caused me to lose my friends, almost made me get from 185 to 165 to 215 and then back down to 180. I'm like 178 now. So it's like a crazy transformation that I don't want this to control my life anymore because I know that I'm powerless against it. It's my kryptonite and I had to surrender to it. Like I said it on a podcast before, it's like you're gonna go to a ring with Conor McGregor and like every single time you're gonna get your ass whooped. Like you have to be insane to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. It's like the same thing. Like that's insanity. Doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. And that's what was happening to me. Like saying, I think I can handle it. I will, trip blackout for 2 weeks, drink in on the weekends, then take 2 weeks off. Oh, I feel better now. I'm okay. But no, that's just not for me. Is that if I pick up one after this podcast, I'm like, yo, Jay, Dylan, let's meet up. We'll just have like 2 drinks. It's not going to be 2. Right. And that's what I have to remember to myself every day I wake up. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. And once it becomes a coping mechanism, like, oh, I had a long day at work. I just had 2 callers. I'm really tired. Or, I crazy domestics or this like that. Once you go home and you're driving home thinking about what I'm going to drink, to me, that's an issue, right? It's not about how much you drink or what you drink. It's what happens to you when you drink. So
When
if
you
your
drink, yeah.
job, your girlfriend or relationship, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, your inner peace is getting disrupted by this, that's a spiritual awakening right there. It's like, it's up to you to do this. And it's one of the hardest things to beat because the statistics say that, big statistic guy, as you guys know, is that like over 90% of people in recovery, they don't make it. They go back out. And that's crazy.
Wow. I didn't
That
even know
is
that
really
it was
crazy.
that high. Yeah.
It
I didn't know
takes
it was that high.
it takes the average person to get it right in 90 days, 3.5 rehabs. So when I was in the hospital, it was like a rehab for 2 weeks. And like, it was like the last second, they're like, oh, why didn't you tell us you were drinking? Because you're a major depression. Well, because I didn't think it was an issue, like Dylan said, right? And you should have told us in the beginning. So I go to this little rehab, and then I got out, and of course picked up a few times, and then I went to the High Watch Recovery Center in Connecticut, and so I was at like 2, I guess, right under, and September 23rd, 2019 is the last time I picked up, and I don't want to be another statistic, right, Dylan? And right after this, we'll hop right into one less org. I don't want to be another statistic from drinking, from my job, from anything. I with the job, of course, the statistics are crazy, and with drinking, so as long as I don't pick up, I go to my meetings, I have these podcasts, I go to work, I lift, I control what I put in my body, so I can control not picking up a drink. I could control what nutrition I'm putting in my body. I can control what weightlifting I'm doing. I could control if I show up and make a meeting. I can control if I show up and go to work. It's just showing up, and the rest will fall into place. Everything else in life I can't control. And that's how I look at it. And that's how hopefully a lot of people start looking at it. Like, we can't even control what like my girlfriend is thinking or her actions. All we could do is react and then say, okay, sit with it for a little bit and say, how do I feel? It's a lot of the time it's really not us. So kind of swing into that. It's a perfect, I'll throw the 40-yard post to Dylan. You can talk to us a little bit how one less org started, and I'm really excited to hear about this and the whole mission and everything about it. So hit us with it.
Yeah, I'm about to piggyback that hardcore, bro. So I chewed for on and off for 7 years. So I get that 100%. Matter of fact, the thing that made me quit was I was actually drunk. And I was, you get in that depressed state. I was the same way. I go out and drink. Give me like 3, I'm the best time of your life. Give me 4 or more, I'm the worst thing you ever brought to the table. And that's me. And it's the same way. Like when I used to go out, like I was like, all right, I got to at least take like 4 shots before I go out, so I'm good. And then the insecurities are still there. They're right in front of you. It's like, oh, one more drink before I go talk to that girl, or one more. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, and then before you know it, you're like, by the time you even think about talking to that girl, you're too sloshed. Like you got to, like you got to go home.
Yeah, that liquid courage, right?
And liquid courage isn't really there, and it was just, man, like alcohol crippled my life. I'll tell you, even in this relationship that I'm in now, like the biggest mistake I ever made in the relationship was due to me being intoxicated. The biggest one ever. And if I break my life down and I go, these are all the worst things Dylan has ever done. They're all based off of alcohol, bro. All of them. All of them. Like in a sober mind, I wouldn't do half the shit that I did when I was drunk. So, and the crazy thing is like, and then I'll get into one less, but this is really going to go right into it. The other thing is that alcohol through our society has been attached to our masculinity. So, and I've noticed that. So, for example, like in personally, like I grew up with I grew up in an alcoholic family. Like my grandfather, heavy alcoholic, you know. So I already have kind of like the genes to get into that. But like in my head, I'm like, oh, if I'm a man, I'm gonna get off work and have a scotch on the rock. So I would like switch up the alcohol. Like I'm like, you know what? Instead of drinking Natty Lights today, I'm gonna have a stiff drink because that's what a man would do. And then before I know it, I'm having like 7 of them, and I'm on the couch like half dead, like you know. So it's just crazy to me, like how much it'll go in that. And kudos to you for all that, man, because that's freaking hard, man. Like and I'll probably dive into this a little bit more later, but actually, let me just go into one lesson, then we'll get there. Like I'm getting worked up. Like this is amazing, man. Like once again, like I didn't know anything about you before hopping into the podcast, but we have so much in common already. I can already tell why the 3 of us have this mission, and it's because we have similar experiences that we've worked ourselves through and are still working through. We're still imperfect, and that we want to make sure that we can get officers to at least the level we're at, or if not more. So let's dive into one less. All right, so. So I had an all-time low a few years back. Like I said, the routine of handling drama or trauma, not drama, well, and drama, incorrectly through alcohol and all that. So basically, my first couple years in law enforcement, it was the same shit every day, right? So I would go to work, whatever came with work. I would get home, especially when I was working midnights. I get off work, and then I drink, play video games, drink, and sometimes, like I was really into the division, so I would stay for 3 days straight playing a game. Like it was bad, and now I can't even do that. Like it's not even possible. But like that's where I was, and so my coping mechanisms, and what I started to realize was, dang, the more that I, keep these habits up, like the shittier the day of the job was, the harder I'd game, the harder I'd drink. So, and that was just a thing for me, and I just keep doing it. And relationships that I had with friends were built around drinking and video games, right? So, so it was just like became a natural thing. Now, also, I started looking into different avenues of work other than law enforcement because I was like, oh, I need more money. Oh, I need more of this. So I'm going to be, man, I don't know. Like at one point, I thought I was going to sell. Forget my mom thinking I'm probably nuts. She thought I was going to sell water filtration systems, like part time. I went to a realtor seminar. I was going to be a realtor part time. Like I was going to all these freaking things, and all because I was trying to escape the job. Like it had nothing to do with coping correctly. Like with like as you guys know, as you start to manage your life better, the job actually gets a little bit easier to an extent. And it becomes more purposeful. Like you actually enjoy going to work. So all these avoidance strategies, I continue to drink, continue to play video games, but I'm gonna be a realtor. Okay, so basically, it got to a point where I was reading all these business books, and one thing that really stuck to me was like manifesting, right? So if you think something long enough, it'll come into fruition. Well, unfortunately for me, that came with suicidal thoughts. So for me, I remember specifically, I was sitting on my couch, and there wasn't any one necessary thing that happened. I think it was just the final debrief with myself. And not the first time in my life, but for the first time in a very long time, specifically since middle school, I had a very clear suicidal thought. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I used to keep my issued firearm in my in my cupboard because I live alone. So like I just had it like in my cupboard, and I had like a safe in there, and I had like it's like my dump spot. And I didn't grab my firearm or anything like that, but I had a distinct thought. It was like, you ain't shit, Dylan. Like you could end it now. And that thought scared the shit out of me. I mean, like to the point where like I was like, I need to do something. Like I need to turn this around because I didn't necessarily, I had the thought, but I didn't want to act on it. Do you know what I mean by that? So like I didn't actually want to do that, but I had, I did believe that if you manifest a thought long enough, it'll happen. And I'm like, how many times am I going to have this thought before it happens? And I don't even have control over it. And that was the thing that made me go, I need to swap some shit up. Like I need to fix this fast because I have a big family. I have a loving family. Immediately in that moment, I started counting my blessings. I was like, look, I have all these things going for me. I have a good job. I have, a loving family. Like, what I need to clean this shit up. So I immediately reached out to a sergeant and went to go get therapy. Now I went through our therapy session. I had one therapy session, and when I tell you this was a terrible therapy session, it was. But I was open minded. Like I was really open minded. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna figure this out. Like let's get it. And we ended up, I don't know what it is about me, but apparently like I turned into the therapist and she was telling me about her problems. And I left there going, wow, I made her feel a lot better, but I still feel the same. She made a comment, like she was like, feel free to shoot me an email if you need anything, but don't shoot me. And I was like, okay, like that's fucked up. Like like who says that, right? Like who says that? So I didn't lose my want to get better. I just decided not to go through therapy. So for the next year and a half or so, I started reading a lot of books on wellness. I got a whole freaking bookshelf over here of books. And I started putting practices into place. I started to drink less. I started to work out more. I started to work on my diet a little bit more. And the term, when it rains it pours. As soon as I started getting a little bit better, and I was like, oh no, I'm all right. And the thoughts started to kind of get away. They're still there, but they kind of like subsided a little bit. I was able to bandage them more. And mind you, this wasn't through professional help. So I'm not definitely not pushing this as an option. Or like as a better option. I think I would have been better off if I would have just tried therapy again and done it the right way. But basically, then I got sick. So I ended up having. So right when I thought I was getting better, I ended up getting mono. That mono, I was living as a residential officer in a government project housing area for quite a few years. I actually just moved out of there. I ended up having black mold in my apartment. So all the time that I was spending lethargic in my house actually turned into me having sinus issues. I ended up having a sinus surgery. And basically I was just like a complete soft cluster. And meanwhile, I was on antibiotics every month for like a year and a half. Because the doctor just didn't know what was wrong with me. Really, what they did was false diagnose me. I had developed hypothyroidism, which I can't prove this, but I'm pretty sure it's due to my excessive alcohol consumption, to be quite honest. Just because of where it's located in the body and how negatively alcohol impacts your thyroid. Secondly, I was dealing with sinus issues, but the combination of both made me feel extremely fatigued. I didn't feel like a man. I mean, even to the point where I didn't have a freaking sex drive. Like I was just crippled. But I will give kudos to myself in the sense that I was still resilient. So I needed to figure something out because suicide was not a freaking option. Right. And I had already worked so hard to get through that I had to figure it out. So it ended up turning into a blessing. My sergeant at the time was like, look, and at this point, I had already somewhat found my purpose. I jumped from being a patrol officer into our community outreach division. And that gave me more flexibility to start developing a teen program, which I do for teens, but not to steer away from one less. I still had my purpose, but I still just had some funk going on. Well, I worked my way out of that using the same practices that I'd learned in the books, and then eventually, I got to a good spot. So last year, I was in a really good spot mentally. I started getting back in the gym again. Like I kind of figured out my thyroid stuff and everything else, and was getting regulated. And I was sitting there, and I was scrolling through Instagram, and I follow Blue Help. So I was scrolling through Instagram, and Blue Help had made a post about suicide awareness in law enforcement, and then they started showing the numbers, and And that moment in time was when and I had already thought about doing one less, but it was more of like a shower thought. It wasn't something I was actually going to put into place. And I was like, you know what? I believe I built myself up to a point where, I can give back now. And something clearly still needs to be done, because even as we can see in this month alone, that we're still losing at a rapid rate, to this demon. So I went all in. Like I said, just like when I joined the police department, I went all in. I was like, I'm going all in. I'm talking about I was on LegalZoom that day. Like I put in the one less was a shower thought, and really what it came down to is one less suicide. That's what it was, and that's what it is. But you can pertain that and flip that into anything. And I'll get into like our mission in a second. So basically, I hop on LegalZoom. I start doing all the paperwork. I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't know I had to have partners with me to start a nonprofit. So I ended up incorporating two good friends of mine into it, and started to get the ball rolling on that. And then I was like, oh man, I'm gonna do a podcast. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And I got the shirts printed. I got the logo going. I got it tattooed on my arm. I was like, I'm in. I'm all in. We're gonna get this going. I started making connection. I started networking with people, and I started to realize that everybody in this community is just so awesome. You know what I mean? Like the connections. I'm sure you've made connections through this journey. Like there's so many of us struggling, and so many of us that want to turn a new leaf and get things going. That every single person that I've actually asked for assistance when getting this started has genuinely wanted to help me, like from the bottom of their hearts. And I'm like, damn, like I'm not used to that. You know what I mean? Like so I started to build what I wanted One Less to be, because I kind of branded it before I knew I knew what I wanted it to be. And originally it was going to be just for law enforcement. And that's why the original logo was One Less and it had a blue line through it. And then I was like, you know what? I want to open up this to all first responders and military. And so we divided it in every line in the One Less represents a different aspect of the first responder military. So we have everything in there from dispatchers to correction officers to military to law enforcement to medics to nurse, everything. So then I really had to fine tune my mission, because I branded myself. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but how did I want to do it? And so what One Less is becoming is we have different pillars of how we want to tackle things. One is the main idea is One Less wants to be a family. So once you enter the One Less family, you have already decided to take that step to start using the toolkits that we have to better yourself. And then we also want to be a central hub of resources. So One Less is taking more of a broad approach to the issue, where we want to collaborate with a bunch of different organizations who already are, maybe experts in what they're trying to do. Like, for example, if like a veteran needs housing, well, One Less might not be able to facilitate that, but I maybe at this point, and this is all still a brainstorming because we haven't got there yet, but maybe we already have a partnership with a nonprofit that does that, so we can just put you in the right direction. So we kind of want to be that. So our main mission is to get first responders into a mental space where they accept the mission of getting better. And I believe that God has granted me a unique voice to be able to do that by sharing my story through podcasts, through like chat rooms, like for example, that Jay and I just came up with, which I can get into later. But basically what One Less is to make people a part of a family where they've already agreed they want to better themselves, and then we provide them with the resources to do so. And then if there's any specific needs of that individual, like as far as needing to go, to an actual center to seek treatment or anything like that, we can build partnerships. So we already have those in place, and then have grants and scholarships together so that we can actually pay their tuition to go to these different places. That is the notion. We want to be the central hub. We want to be, and we are going to be, is going to be the central hub for all resources for first responders and military. You can come to One Less and you can get anything you need. We're a one-stop shop. I don't know if you guys know what Kaiser is. Do you know what Kaiser is? Like the okay. Basically, Kaiser is help, and I'm only bringing this because basically, if you're with Kaiser, you go to one building, and all of your resources are there. Like instead of going to different doctors for different things, everything's in one building. Now, this might be a bad analogy because I don't really like Kaiser because I quit them. I have new now, but one less essentially wants to be that one-stop shop, right? So we want to be that one-stop shop where you can come to one less, and we'll have toolkits. So through our podcast, it's kind of giving an outlet for first responders to talk about their experiences and to become vulnerable. I think that's where, like, at least what I'm going to be doing is opening up that option for people to become more vulnerable. And then once they are vulnerable, we can start giving them the resources. Because the biggest issue that I notice, especially with law enforcement, is that we're a bunch of type A individuals, and sometimes the men being worse at this than the women, but we put a face of masculinity in front of our mental health that shields us from getting any help because we think that we're weak. And that really, and I want one less to be the pry that breaks that so that we can actually get, first responders the help that they need. And that's the main mission of one less. And the end result of that is being one less suicide. We have this profession right now that is extremely rewarding if we allow it to be. And my goal is for myself personally is I don't want to be that disgruntled veteran that gets out 25 years and hates my life and is out of shape and like what you're telling me I just did all those years of selfless service to live my life like shit when I retire or live my life like shit while I'm in the job. I mean, you already give so much to the job that we deserve. I do believe that we deserve, you know, to live a happy, somewhat ordinary life. Like I believe that we deserve that, and I put that pedestal on a higher than the everyday person because of what we experience and we sacrifice for the betterment of others. And I want to be able to drive that home with first responders so that they realize that. And and what I also realized is especially with the current climate of law enforcement specifically, I believe we have a lot less rogue officers than we do actually just officers who are struggling. And that's why they have a really hard time doing their job efficiently because they're struggling internally and they've lost their sense of purpose and their mission and the reason for why they joined the job in the first place. And that's causing them to have a jaded view while on shift and is unfortunately contributing to the community not feeling that they're supported by their own police. And I believe that if we conquer the mental health mission, there's certain things that the average person needs to incorporate in their life to have a successful lifestyle. They have to be eating healthy. They have to be involved in physical fitness, some form of physical fitness, and this has all been backed by science. And then on top of that, you have to have some connection to spirituality. That might be an option for the everyday person, but for first responders, that is a necessity. The only way that we can survive and thrive in these constant exposures to different traumas and solving the world's problems, essentially, because we've been caught in the middle of the politics too, is by having those at home lifestyles set in stone, by cutting out the drinking, by cutting out any excessive tobacco use or anything that's a negative stimulant, and so that we can gain full control of our lives and really live the lives we deserve to live because we're giving so much of ourselves to others. And so that's kind of the roundabout way of one less, what it's striving to be. And if anybody goes to our website, which is still being built, or anything like that, and you notice that there's inconsistencies in our podcast, basically last year when I decided to ramp it up is actually the same time that America decided to catch on fire. So getting pulled from those responsibilities and going through my own mental, pretty much trials and tribulations through everything we've been experiencing the past year, I did put one less on the back burner and prioritize myself. And so there has been a big gap. And luckily now that the chaos is kind of subdued, um, you know, I, now I feel like I'm in a better position, and I know that I'm in a better position to move forward with this. And I know that if I don't do this, my purpose isn't going to be fulfilled, and I'm always going to just have that cloud above me. Um, and for all the listeners, you know, when it comes to seeking help, I can tell you as somebody who is not only a community outreach officer, but is also now, we call it SOT, but commonly known as a SWAT operator. You can get help. Like it is, and I'm saying that to break that stereotype, you know, because we build that upon ourselves. And I'm not saying that to gloat myself up, but being a part of one of the most difficult positions in our department to get after, and probably the most alpha macho position you can be in. I'm telling you from that, as a operator in training, I'm still getting help. I go to therapy once a week. So if I can do that, then anybody can do that. You should never ever get to a point. I know because I've been there. Should never get to a point where you're questioning your own, and this is more derived towards men, but you should not ever question your own masculinity to seek help. And on top of that, you should never. And of course we're going to do it anyway. So I'm saying you should never, but we're going to do it anyway. You also don't let it hinder your ideas about yourself about being able to do the job effectively. If anything, by you seeking help, you're going to be able to be there for your other coworkers more than you ever know. So yeah, that's pretty much the roundabout of one less.
It's really wonderful stuff, man. It's really is. Going back to in the beginning though, when you talk about the therapist, before we get into one less, is happens to a lot of people. Same thing with even fellowship groups like AA or NA. They might not find a group that works for them, or they might not find a therapist that works for them. Um, but it's like going to college and different things. You apply to multiple. Just because one doesn't work, you keep going. Same thing with gyms, right? If relationships don't work out, it didn't work out. I'm just going to be by myself forever, you know? Same thing with these organizations. Like, hey, we're all, like I said, there's so many organizations all over the country, like reps, one less. You come to reps, you don't like reps. Okay, go to one less. You know what I mean? Let's work together. Don't just have one bad taste in your mouth, because what Dylan said is 100% true. I mean, the journey he came from is now he's in SWAT. He's doing great, and think about it as, am I gonna just go and man up in quotes, and go to therapy once a week, or am I gonna drink 3-4 days a week? What is really more powerful, right? Because in the beginning, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be hard. You have to face it head on. If you don't face it head on, you're deflecting all the time. You're never gonna grow, and you might never have a chance to go in a SWAT or become the community outreach officer or anything like that. Um, and for anyone listening, like Dylan admitted it, and I've admitted in the past, like 1 in 4 police officers have suicidal ideations, thoughts, right? They don't act on it, thoughts in their lifetime, either on the job or when they retire. Um, just out of the 3 of us here, there's 2 of us, so 66.6 repeating percent, right, in this group has had it, and we're still here. And I don't think we're surviving. I think me and this is not egotistic, but I think me and Dylan are thriving, and it's because of the work and the years and the responsibility and everything that we had to say is that we don't want to be another statistic, right? I refuse not to be another statistic. So Dylan, I really commend you and thank you, for sharing your story and being honest, being very frank with us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that, and sharing the mission statement with us. Like Frank was saying, we want to be able to create a space where, first responders can have multiple options. Like if someone doesn't like reps, then, they have an issue with reps, they can go to one less. And that's what it's all about. Just being in a community where we can help one another. Because this is a very crucial time for men and women in law enforcement, because we're in a unique space. There's a lot of division in this country, and we're trying to close that gap. And the only way we can close that gap is having these resources and creating a safe space where we can come together and have open dialogue, constructive conversation, and people can learn from one another. And the guys and girls that are going through the things that they're going through because of the job need to have multiple avenues in order to get help. I mean, I don't think people don't understand how important that is, because when one door is closed, if somebody really needs to get to somebody, that person is going to need to have another option. And this is why, we kind of create this space. I mean, we were in that clubhouse meeting the other day, man. And like I said, somebody sent me a DM that was in there. And, a lot of the stuff that you were talking about, he mentioned, hey, he wanted to get access to that book that you mentioned. And, he was just looking for a way to deal with what he was dealing with, and I thought that was just pretty awesome that we were able to have that, quick little hour conversation on Clubhouse. And, somebody took something from it,
You literally could have one less, literally. And to go back, on and harp on what you're saying, Frank, is, you got to be willing to put in the work. This shit takes work. I mean, it's not easy. You're not going to be, like, you got to wake up every morning and you got to be ready to get to work. The same way that you put in when you're going to a hot call, you got to put that in your own mental health. Like, that is essential. And if anything, that should make you feel empowered, because it's not easy to accomplish. That should empower you to want to get help and to get better because of how much work you have to put in. And that's why, Frank, you, Jay, myself, we have all reaped the benefits of putting in the work. And let me tell you something right now, there's a lot more work to be put to get done. It's a never-ending journey. And that kind of scares people. I mean, I get it, but you're gradually working your way up. It's kind of like just putting like a couple of dollars in your savings account. Next thing you know, 10 years later, you're like, damn, I got some money in here. Like, it's the same thing. You're contributing to that every day. But the cool thing about it now is social media has allowed us to really open it up so that you don't have to go through it alone. You can put in the work and put in the hours and then reach out to us and then, and be like, yo, man, I just did this, or I just did that. Like, look, we dropped a bunch of gems in that clubhouse session. There are things that Jay do that, like, I don't even do. I didn't even know. So I wrote those things down. I was like, yo, I'm gonna start incorporating that in my life, in what I'm doing, because that's gonna skyrocket my ability to cope with some of the things that I've been dealing with. And and I think that's important to harp on, because all of us have put in a lot of work, but it's also important for everybody to understand, especially the individuals who are new, who are just getting into this and are hopefully inspired by the messages we've given, that, like, we're still working. It's not like we made it and now we're there. Like, I still deal with my shit. I still got demons in the closet. Like, they're still there. They're very prevalent. And I deal with those, and every day I got to chip away at it. And then I can almost, it kind of builds me up, because I feel better about myself because I did put in that work. And honestly, putting in the work has given us all the confidence to be honest about our situation. I can't tell you. I didn't say shit to nobody the first year. Nothing. Nobody knew. My sergeant knew. He kept it under wraps. Nobody knew. I didn't open up to anybody. The only reason that I even feel comfortable telling, other guys that I work with that I meditate, or like that I keep a journal, or that all these other little practices that I put into place that might, because of our culture, make us appear to be weak. The only reason I feel comfortable doing that is because I had to put into work to believe in myself enough to be able to give back. And I'm telling you, there's nothing more rewarding. And I know all three of us, all three of us agree on this. There's nothing more rewarding than, like, what just happened in that clubhouse meeting, where you just had that one guy who was just like, yo, thank you. Like, I'm open to the idea of getting these resources. Like, that's everything. Even if it's just one person, like, that is everything, because we've reaped the benefits and a little bit from what we've put in to play. And and we want other people to feel that. It's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah, man. That's why I spoke to you yesterday about it, because That one person, that's the difference right there. If we can't move the masses, oh well. But if you help one person, that is, I think to me, that is the ultimate sign of like, hey, what you're doing is absolutely working. One person then multiplies itself. And so anything that we can do to like help one less, by all means, man, like we're here to help. The cross pollination is what it's all about. Frankie got me involved in reps, and it all came from word of mouth. He worked with a guy that I knew, and he believed that he and I had the same mission statement. So then Frankie just reached out to me, and look, we're sitting here now on a podcast, getting another organization involved. It has to start somewhere. Like that narrative has to start somewhere. And right now more than ever, we need to partake in these type of like activities. This type of fellowship is needed right now. And on all aspects, not even just from a first responder, situation is we, as human beings, we all need to sit down and have these conversations with one another and offer help, because everybody's hurting in some shape, form, or fashion. The problem is people don't have the proper outlets. Listening to your story and listening to Frankie's story, it's like two guys from two different places experienced the same thing, and you guys you sought help, and now we're all sitting in a room where we're like, all right, so this is what we need to do so that this doesn't happen to the guys that follow us, the guys that come behind us, the second generation, or the guys that are, in the same workspace that need that outlet. Maybe you guys wouldn't have went down that road if you had that outlet a little earlier. We don't know what the outcome would have been, but nonetheless, you guys got the help that you guys needed. But I see in both of you guys that you don't want people to experience what you guys experienced. And this is why you guys have created these organizations. And it's guys like you that make the world a better place, because you're putting out resources and helping those who need it. Instead of you just saying, hey, I went through it, somebody else got to go through it. You guys don't want other people to experience what you went through. So you're creating this avenue so that people can help one another. And, I want to take this time to commend both you dudes, because you guys are doing a solid job. And, I am honored and humbled to know both you dudes.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, man. Like, big time. It's a blessing. I take this all as a blessing, is that my experience was a blessing because it made me who I am today, and it gave me the ability to give back. So I don't regret any of my childhood. I don't regret any of the dumb stuff I did throughout my lifetime. I believe it put me right here, right now, because the big man upstairs had those plans even before I even knew it. And to kind of kick this into a positive note, what I'm seeing now is that new officers are actually a lot more accepting to the wellness. So if we can start implanting that to newer recruits, and getting
the culture is changing for sure.
The culture is definitely changing. We're watching it because we're in the middle of it. We're between two different extremes. We're watching it. Do I have a lot of concerns for the new guys coming in? Hell yeah, because it's just a different beast. But at least they are more accepting to this. And I believe that as these programs get more popular, and we put our best foot forward, that it'll become something where it's just a standard. It's like, all right, bet you're a cop. Well, you're a medic, or you decided you want to join the military, or any of this. Okay, well, here's practices that you need to put in place so that your at-home life is good to go. And it just becomes a standard. I mean, a lot of us work really well that way. I know for me, I work better if I'm just directed. So I know that when I got hired, if somebody would have told me, okay, no, it's not your choice. This is what we're going to do. All right. You're going to get hired. We're going to run you through everything we got to run you through. You're going to check in with a therapist at least once a month. And we're going to get you on a fitness program that you must follow to keep your law enforcement status. I mean, if all these things were put into place, I wouldn't have known any better. I've been like, let's do it. But, unfortunately, we're not there yet. So, I had to do that on my own. But as long as, I'm noticing a lot of programs like this rising up. And, so it does give me like a very, very high hopes for the future.
I know things are looking on the up and up, bro. I mean, the culture's changing. Like I'm one of those guys. I got 16 years on, so it's like when I came on, this culture didn't exist. Us three sitting in on a podcast talking about meditating and things of that nature. That didn't happen. Like you said, it was quiet practice more than anything. And so I think guys like Frankie and yourself are at the forefront trying to change that culture. And the more they see, because you guys are a lot younger than me, the more they see young guys, um, participating and stuff like that, it normalizes it. And I think we've spent in police culture, I think we've spent too much time normalizing things that aren't good for us. And so in order to change that pattern behavior, you have to start to incorporate the things that are good for you and then make that the norm. And like I said, man, you guys are in a place of enlightenment at a young age. Some men don't find their way until way, way later. And because I know when I was, 25, 26, 27, I wasn't thinking like this. My brain was not there. And people don't understand too, this is a very unique role to put a young man into, you got, at 21, 22 years old, if you become a cop at that age, you're still trying to figure out who the hell you are. You know what I mean? Like you haven't truly identified with who you are, and you're still a kid if you really think about it on the grand scheme of things. So like, I always tell people I had to learn how, I had to grow up pretty quick. But was I really quote unquote grown up? Nah, man, I still had shit I was trying to figure out. But you guys are crushing it. You guys are young men getting after it, and we need guys like you to change that culture and start to normalize the positive behaviors instead of what we've been doing for these last however many years.
Amen, Jay. Thank you for the kind words before and just now.
Always, bro. Always.
Really appreciate it. And again, always appreciate being my brother in arms in the labyrinth and being part of reps now officially. And got a little wad to crush Saturday. We'll be getting after that.
I'm gonna bring my A game, bro. I'm gonna try my hardest.
I know. I'm gonna keep up with you on that rower. But anyway, yeah, I refuse to suffer in silence. Right? Let's go. Right, Dylan? Refuse to suffer in silence.
Don't do that shit.
Dylan said something great is every day is a learning. Every day we have to grow, right? And we are growing if we let ourselves grow. The day we were born is the day we started dying. So when we fall asleep and we wake up, the sun comes back, right? It comes back up. And if it doesn't come back up, we're not here and our time is gone. So every day you have to put in the work. It could be a step, it could be a crawl, but it's better than just being stagnant. And that's how I look at it. I didn't have the best workout today, but I was there, right? What can I go next? What can I do next time? Like Dylan said, there's no regrets in life. And it's a motto. I need to have this tatted on me somewhere. Just kidding. No regrets in life, just learning experiences. So if we can take that and perceive that and learn and accept what is and what was, and not try to force to get the X back or force to, go back on that job and change something different, force what I said. I think you'll be more serene with yourself. And so Dylan, I just want to thank you so much, man, for coming on the show today. But before we wrap up, I have a few more personal questions just to get the listeners to know you a little more.
Let's do it.
So favorite food, you have one meal to eat for the rest of your life every day, healthy or unhealthy. What are you going with?
Dude, I'm gonna get made fun of so much for this.
Go for it.
If I get one meal for the rest of my life, it would be chicken tacos.
Chicken taco.
That's not bad. We heard tacos before. I feel like, Jay.
Yeah, we heard tacos.
I don't think chicken, but yeah, that's not bad. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, my girlfriend makes fun of me all the time because I literally, no matter what I eat, there's always chicken in there. So I eat a lot of chicken, and so yeah, chicken tacos.
Well, there you go. You want some extra money, man? Build a chicken coop and a chicken farm and start selling those chickens and the eggs, man. If you love them. Favorite movie or two that come to your head right now? 10 seconds.
All right, Liar, Liar,
okay.
And Remember the Titans.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, Remember the Titans. That's a good one. I'll take that.
I went to high school.
Sunshine.
Wait, you went to high school with who?
I went to high school at T.C. Williams.
Oh, Oh, okay, cool. That's
I was a Titan dog.
That's awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
One main workout movement, compound barbell lift, supersetted with any accessory every day. Your recovery is always the same. What are you going with? Only these two. So a main lift and an accessory lift.
Oh man, main lift is gonna be bench press. You know what I'm saying? Gotta work those glamour muscles, baby.
That's it,
And
man.
then I'm gonna totally just be a total fuckboy on this and go to bicep curls.
Those beach muscles, man, for
That's
Virginia.
right. That's right.
All right. Okay.
We wear pants a lot because it doesn't get that hot over here, so you got to keep the up top good squared away.
Curls for the girls, bro. Curls for the girls. I got a
right.
question. I got a question. I'm gonna add one, Frankie, if you don't mind.
for it.
Good sir. If your life was a movie, who would you use to play you as an actor, and who would you have directed? Ooh, that's a good one. It's a good one. That's a good one.
You gotta let them think now.
Yeah, see, I see the wheels turning. My man Dylan he's got smoke coming from his ears now.
I would like The Rock to direct a movie about me.
Oh, okay.
And I'd like the character to be I'm gonna say his name wrong. Jason Statham.
Oh, it's a little transporter action over there. Okay,
Yeah,
a little action flick.
probably because I just watched that movie, but
Yeah.
that dude's such a badass. You know,
Was that movie that was on? It's on Netflix now. He's like that undercover.
Yeah,
that undercover like DEA agent, and he ends up in that town somewhere where they're like cooking meth.
He's got a
Is that
bunch
the movie you're
of
talking about?
well, he's got a bunch of them, but I watched
saw that yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, I just watched that the other day.
Yeah.
She's badass.
Literally.
And all the transporters are really good. All the transporter movies that he's
Wait,
in.
you're talking about Transport, Jay, or Homefront? It was called Homefront.
Homefront. That's the movie I'm talking about.
Homefront's the one.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But if you want to go back to some of his OG movies, you go back to those transports. Those are freaking sick.
That's what he's known for.
But the reason I would want The Rock in it is because I know that he would like have action in there, but he'd also have a lot of heart in there. So like,
oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So like, because I need to balance him out. Like Jason Statham's like 100% like just a badass. If it was gonna, be me, I need a little bit more heart in there. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
One person to hang out with, dead or alive, for the day. As Dylan now, who are you hanging out with?
Oh man. Funniest is probably gonna be Tony Robinson.
Okay,
really?
first time.
That's the first. That's the first.
The only reason I say that is because when I was getting ready to start, when One Less was in fruition, I didn't really have a name for it. I told myself I wanted to be the Tony Robbins of law enforcement.
Okay.
I could just imagine like having that big conference and all those first responders being like, "Woo!" You know what I mean? Like, let's get it. Let's better ourselves. Like, let's get it. We're a family now. Like, so I guess maybe that's why I popped up. Take some of those gems from him since he's doing that to the world.
That's great. Oh man. What? Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll be like, what's her name? The New York show, like, how you doing? What's her name? That does the show. I was almost said Ellen DeGeneres. People aren't a fan of her. That's funny.
Definitely not Ellen.
Yeah, not now. You come to New York, right? We open up a tarp. We lift the tarp up, and me and Jay are like, "Yo, Dylan, you got a time machine. Anywhere you want to go, future or past." Says Dylan, right now. Where are you going?
Oh, man, it was hit me with the good ones. I really want to go to like Northern California and hit the mountains a little bit.
But what year? You have a time machine. You go
any time machine.
Yeah, anywhere, the future or the past. It could be 10 years ago. It could be last year. It could be 1920. It could be 2050.
Man, I'd probably go back. Man, that's a hard one, dude. Let me give me like three seconds to think about this.
My shit is easy. I don't have such a problem with this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go back to the age of like Napoleon.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And try to catch some of those ancient, more ancestral vibes. and see like how they did it when life was a lot more simple. And they just everybody stood their ground for their own meaning and kind of rewire it that way a little bit.
I could dig it. I could dig that. I mean, for me, like, I'm just a history buff, so I want to go some, Roman times, kick it with Julius Caesar, something. I'm one of those dudes, or like ancient Greece,
Yeah.
Pick Achilles' brain. You know what I mean?
That'd be so dope.
You can knock out Brutus. You can knock out Brutus before E2 Brutus. Like that before he's a traitor. So, Dylan, it was an honor. It was a pleasure. My name is Frank. You guys know where to find me at reps_4_responders. Got a new website up, looking pretty good. Reps4responders.org. Jay, talk to me. Where can they find you?
Yeah. The real Jumpman Jay on Instagram. That's where you can find me. Actually, I just started a TikTok, the real Jumpman Jay on TikTok.
Oh, no.
Yeah, gotta.
Oh,
yeah, man.
no.
So listen, it's a great platform. You don't always have to dance on it. You can kind of just put up vids to kind of cross pollinate.
Right. Yeah. It is good.
What happens is guys get on TikTok and then they reference the TikTok to your Instagram. So it's a good way to get your stuff out there. And where can they find you, Dylan?
They can find me on Instagram at dl.ignacio, IGNACIO. And then if you go to that page, you'll get a direct link to One Less. Our website's not up and running yet, but you can try it out. It's www.1lesstraining.org.
Okay.
I'm always free for a DM. It's the best way to get a hold of me.
Cool. You have a time frame on when that that website's going to be done?
I'm working with some people no. That's on my goal. That's on my goal list. It's up there, like it's a functional website, but it just doesn't have the material we want on it yet. So
I got you. Okay, cool.
Building that out.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, boys. Win. What's important now? Have a good day, everyone. And Dylan, thanks again for coming on the show, man. Stay safe out there.
Yo, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, Dylan. Appreciate you, brother. Later.